I don't know, weekend warrior life where I'm at the job and I'm like tweeting back to like the first fans I have, but
Mhm.
also like I've gotten booked to play a University of Georgia frat basement show for like $1,000, and I'm
Wow.
flying in to do it, and then I got to be back at work by Monday, and eventually, like that was like this is not tenable. Like I can't continue doing this forever.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I'm super excited to talk to you. I love the new song that you have coming out and just like the whole change in sound. It's so sick.
Thanks, man. I super appreciate you taking the time to chat. This is my first interview podcast. I don't know how we define this, but this is my first one for the new music. So
Oh, awesome. I feel honored.
will I be rusty? I don't know. Well, we'll see
It
what
doesn't matter.
happens.
It's a conversation, less of
I
me ask you a question and we elaborate for 5 seconds on it.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I mean I forgot how to have conversations throughout the last 2 years of
Staring
of
at your
ice
walls.
exactly of isolation. You're like, what are conversations? So yeah,
Yeah.
no, I appreciate it, man.
Cool, cool. Awesome. Well, we start off with born and raised. You're from New York? Is that what I read?
Yeah, yeah. Still live in New York. I grew up in the suburbs outside of New York City, and I live in Brooklyn now.
Okay. Tell me about growing up in New York. I mean, I know you have pretty much access to a lot of places via, the subways and everything. Was that a pretty freeing experience, I would think?
Well, I mean, I grew up in a more neighborhoody,
Oh,
like
okay.
you got a backyard and you're gotta
Oh,
drive
there you go.
drive to places. Now, my
That's my growing up, so that's cool because I don't
yeah.
I don't understand city life, man.
Well, I mean, I love city life. That's been my life for the last, decade plus, where you can go to the street corner and get a deli sandwich from anywhere. And
Sure.
New York City is like the most walkable city. I think maybe like technically the most walkable city in the world. So I mean, I love that aspect of just being able to go everywhere whenever you want, kind of by
Mhm.
foot. But yeah, I mean, I think I had a pretty typical upbringing, but New York has always had such a like being so close to the city kind of provided a really interesting music scene. And also,
Mhm.
where I grew up in Long Island specifically had a very specific um, emo music scene.
Oh, dude, you
That's
had the
Taking Back
scene.
Sunday, Envy on the Coast, and like that,
Brand new.
brand new. Exactly. So I'm 33. So I mean, it lines up perfectly when I'm like 17, 16 years
Oh,
old.
dude.
So I mean, it was kind of
That's amazing. I grew up in San
everywhere.
Diego and I'm 37, so like I'm a little older than you, but that was the scene. I
Yeah.
love that. That's actually why I started this podcast was solely to interview people in that genre. And then my wife's like, "Yeah, that would be cool, but what else would be cool is like actually having a ton of people that would be willing to talk to you aside from like the
I
handful of
mean,
bands that are in that genre."
you're living the dream, man. San Diego is probably one of my favorite places in the. I mean, how can you be upset any day in San Diego? It's just like
It was
67
great.
degrees and sunny and
Sure.
nice.
I
Yeah,
mean,
the
I
dream
recently moved to
place.
Nashville, so I'm taking
Pretty
quite a
similar.
different, yeah,
Yeah,
different as
pretty
far as the
similar to me.
weather goes, a little bit different, but man, we love it. We love it here. So,
Oh, amazing.
but that's awesome. So you grew up in Long Island, you said in more of a suburb. So,
Yeah.
well, how did you get into music? I mean, from reading about you, I know you're incredibly smart, so I'd love to hear kind of that piece of your world, but how did you get into music?
Someone must have edited my Wikipedia if they said I was smart, but I'll take it. Um,
Didn't you work at Google or am I totally screwing myself here?
no, you're right. I'm just
Okay.
I'm deflecting from a compliment that makes me uncomfortable.
Okay.
No, I'm just teasing. How I started music. I mean, hip hop was sort of my first. Alongside everything else, hip hop was sort of the first thing that made me want to make music. Like I started almost before I even really understood what I was doing. I would write these like raps after school. Both my parents worked, so like I would like go to their office after school and have nowhere to be. There's no one to watch me. So like they tuck me away in this room and I would just like go and be creative, I guess. Not really prompted by anything because I didn't grow up in a very like music is everywhere and
Mhm.
art is everywhere house. It must have been something sort of innate. So I was writing these songs before I really knew what they were, and then kind of started, as your musical palette expands via MTV or at the
Mhm.
time like early internet, MySpace. sort of things you start like discovering stuff. I was discovering a lot of underground hip hop at the time, and really took a liking to just the storytelling aspect of that sort of music. And before I knew it, I was downloading beats from like mp3.com, which I doubt exists anymore. Maybe it does. If they do, shout out to mp3.com
They were
or
actually
wherever
based in
else.
San Diego. It was
Really?
funny. Yeah. I had a
Oh,
couple of friends
no
that worked
way.
there, and it was like, what is this? I remember when it came out, and people were like, it's the new way of like music
Oh
coming.
yeah.
It was a trip.
You
So
just I find free beats wherever I could, and just I had like a microphone that I got at Radio Shack probably for like $19,
Mhm.
and I downloaded a version of a program called Cool Edit Pro,
Oh,
where
I remember Cool Edit.
everyone on the internet could get Cool Edit Pro as a like what is it called when you like basically steal something, but
Oh, like you torrent it? Was it? Is it torrent? No.
I don't know if it was from torrent or you like a cracked version. Like this was a
Oh yeah,
program that
like
was
a
like sold to like
LimeWire type cracked version.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I may or may not have gotten that. Not looking to like incriminate myself. Cool Edit Pro, but I
If that
yeah I
even
just
exists
yeah they're
anymore.
gonna come after me. There's lawyers are coming after me. But yeah, that's how I started kind of putting together these like very rudimentary versions of raps or songs. And as you keep going with it, at first you're sort of like imitating the things that you find, and then eventually your own style. If you keep up with something, like a lot of times you can kind of develop your own style from a mix
Mhm.
of your influences, and develop your own path. And I don't know, somewhere along the way I was making something that people actually were like, this isn't half bad. And then you're like, oh, intrinsic motivation, let's go.
Sure,
feel
sure.
i feel validated. And before you know it, that became like the thing that I love the most, just creating,
Mhm.
just the idea of creating something from scratch. And at the end of the day, you had this thing, this tangible like song. So yeah, that's kind of how everything started.
When did you start actually like putting the songs together to the extent of like being able to like upload them online or show them to people? Do you remember that?
I think I was like 12 or 13
Oh
years old.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. But like those songs are never really like those songs are under mysterious, anonymous names that
Aliases.
I aliases exactly, that I'm not really interested in breaking publicly, because they're quite embarrassing. But yeah, I mean, the first time I was like uploading songs, like I remember this. It was like there was a forum called Rap. I want to say it was called rapmusic.com, and
Mhm.
people would like not only talk about like it was like a message board, but like people wouldn't only even talk about stuff they like. They would also like collaborate with other users on there, or share their music and try to get like feedback from other people. And like I must have spent like 2 hours a day on that place, and I would upload to like not even SoundCloud. There was a version of something called before SoundCloud was like SoundClick. Um,
Mhm.
I'm dating myself. We're getting very old timey here, but yeah, it
No,
was
I
like
love
you
it.
you'd share the music, and people would be like, the flow is okay, the quality is bad, da 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 da, 5 out of 10, and you'd be like, all right, 5 out of 10 from random user, and then just you
But
know,
that's
uh,
cool. Like, I mean, getting
yeah,
feedback like that, you that's the hardest thing, right? You're putting out songs, you're like, well, does anyone care? Like, what can I work on? Like, what can I work on here? And people telling you that you're
yeah,
taking feedback right there.
for sure. And it was very interesting, because all my other friends and like the kids in my high school, like at the time, like I'm coming in freshman year, like obviously we're kind of in peak emo stage world
Hmm.
at the time. There was like a place called the Temple that everyone went to for shows, and it's just everyone had a band, everyone had a MySpace, battle of the bands every month. And like those were my friends, but I was doing something a little bit non-traditional to that, and
Hmm.
nobody was like, if at least it felt like nobody was rapping. Like you'd have like a kid in another nearby town be like, "Oh, he raps too. You guys should battle each other." But like for the most part, bands dominated the scene.
Oh yeah.
Before long, I started sort of incorporating that and working with, my friends who were getting signed to local band labels, or kind of, you know what I mean? Like the everything was kind of like emerging at the time, and definitely influenced sort of like the soundscape of like what I was thinking about, and not making it just only hip hop, but like
Hmm.
being, because I grew up, I think my first CD I ever bought was like an Offspring CD. So like,
Okay.
it was always like a sort of
Like
split
punk
left
rocky.
right. Yeah, like
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of like left right genre of the things that I was like gravitating towards.
Hmm. Did you play in a band or anything like that? Like when that whole scene was kind of emerging, or are you only really focusing on like hip hop?
I was more so focusing on hip hop. Like I took guitar lessons for a couple of years, and I was just so bad at it. I felt like, oh, this isn't it. Like this doesn't come natural to me. But like writing always was so intuitive. Like I just loved writing. So
Hmm.
I kind of stuck with it on that end and was like, I'll let the people who are good at guitar and drums do that. So I remember doing like a couple of like battle of the bands where I would like fill in as the vocalist. But again, it was very amateur hour, which I guess is the
I
nature of
mean, you got
it.
to start somewhere,
You gotta start somewhere.
right?
Yeah,
Well, you went to
totally.
what, a gifted high school? Is that what I saw? Like a
Well, no, I went to public high school, but before that, I was in yeah, up until like for second to eighth grade, I was in a very alternative school program that's like I don't really know that it exists in other places. I'm sure it
Mhm.
does, but yeah, it was uh, basically as a very little kid, um, I was I don't know. Not I was being a mixture of doing too much and being disruptive to the class in the sense where I would like finish the exam and then be like, let me go finish other people's exams. I don't know what was wrong with me. But then eventually the school was like, hey, maybe there's this other place that like it's like 12 person classes and it's super advanced. And like, I was like, give me homework. Like, I was very
Well, it
weird
sounds like you
as
were
a
just
kid.
super smart and then we're getting bored. Like, okay,
I think I was a little bit bored and there was this program. So it was very interesting because that whole school, which was great. It was a very interesting experience. Also sort of uh, you're not in with all the other kids. You kind of like develop your own path. That's kind of where I started. That is where I started writing music as well for myself. So like you kind of but almost in some weird way, I don't know if I've ever thought about it like this, but by not being in like sort of the mainstream environment, um, at like 9, 10, 11, you kind of like really do get a chance to hone in and develop like the things that are like interesting to you. And I guess for me,
Mhm.
that was music. So yeah, it's kind of weird how that took shape. I don't really give it credit, but yeah,
Well, that is really interesting to think about because you aren't being, yeah, pulled in different outside influences or what your friends kind of like doing what your friends like to do because they're doing it to kind of
because you
fit
don't
in with
have
that
friends.
clicks.
Yeah,
Well,
just
not even that you don't have
don't have
friends, but
friends and then you're
you're
good.
no, 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 but you're like you're stuck with these cliques almost because like I hung out with kids at school that I didn't hang out with when I got home. It was like it wasn't the same kind of group of
Yeah.
friends. But like when you're there, you kind of have to play ball as far as like, you don't want to look like I don't know. Kids are
Yeah,
mean.
no, the social pressures of being I don't
Yeah.
think that ever changes as being like a teen or preteen, like, they're whatever your friends are doing is gonna be what you're doing. Like, I remember defiantly being, like, the only person who, like, didn't play Pokemon, and, like well, Pokemon has definitely come 360 where it's very
Mhm.
cool again, but, like, at the time, like, I
It
was a
wasn't cool.
loser. I was no, it was cool. I was a loser
Oh,
not playing. They were like, you don't play Pokemon? Like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, I
okay.
don't know. I'm just not into it. So, it's very easy to get pulled into the direction of what everyone else is doing.
Mhm.
And like it's like when do those things that you love really like what age do they develop and take shape? And like when they do you hone them? And like I feel like when we see people who this is not me talking about myself, but when we see people who are like virtuosos or like, oh, Taylor Swift at like 16 is like signing a record deal, like that's only possible because she realized at 8 or I don't know Taylor
Mhm.
Swift's exactly, but like she realized
Right.
like, so early on, like, oh, I love this and I'm gonna like
Yes, and I'm
pour
gonna
my
embrace it. Right.
and it's like if you don't start then in some sense, it's like there's someone else who's like figuring out their passion at like age 9. It's
Right.
yeah.
No, you're so right, and it's interesting because I've done so many of these interviews. Like, a lot of people come from homeschooling or private schooling, or just because, and then you'll see, oh wow, they had so much time to focus on the one thing that they knew they really wanted to do. Like a
Yeah.
buddy of mine plays drums for Jaden, and he filled in for Machine Gun Kelly. He's played with a bunch of people, and he started playing drums at 2, and then just did private or homeschool his whole life because all he knew was I'm going to play drums, and that's all I really care about. And then at 16, he's touring, and but it's because if you know what you want to do and you can kind of lock into it, and you don't have the other distractions. Like Taylor Swift's a great example of that.
I know that guy. He looks really cool on Instagram. He's killing it.
Oh, you do, Tosh. He's a
Yeah,
great
yeah,
he's a
yeah.
great dude. Yeah, I love him. He's such a cool person.
He played for, I don't know if he still is playing for an artist named Carly Hansen, who's
Yes.
really,
Oh
really
yeah,
great.
I love
That's
Carly
that's where
Hansen.
that's where I that's where I discovered like I've seen them together and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah. Actually, that's where I discovered him too. I interviewed Carly Hansen, and when I watched her set, they were opening for Bad Sons, and I'm
Oh
like, who
wow.
is this guy on the drums? Like it was like it blew my mind because I grew up in San Diego, and Blink was like the band. They were from the same town I grew up
Oh
in,
yeah.
and I remember when I first saw Travis Barker when he took over for Scott Rayner on drums. I'm like, whoa, like this band just like elevated so far just by changing the drummer. And then it was the same thing when I saw Tosh. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy like is Travis Barker. He reminds me of Travis Barker when I
Oh
first saw
yeah.
him.
That
But
transition, I'm trying to remember. That was Dude Ranch to
Enema
Enema
of
of
the
the State,
State.
right? That was,
Yeah.
yeah, very. The young version of myself did not really understand. I was like, oh, there's a new person. Oh, got it. Cool.
Right. Well, what's crazy is not to go off on a Blink tangent, but
We can always go on a Blink tangent. Always. I'm always down
okay.
for that.
Like they recorded Enema of the State with Scott Rayner on the drums.
Oh
And then
wow.
Travis went back in and redid all the
Redid
parts.
other stuff.
So like if even if you watch American Pie at the end, like he's Rayner's credited as like in the movie, but he's not in the
Nah.
film. And
Yeah.
then the version of I think they put Mutt or something off Enema of the State in the actual movie. It's the old one. It's the old version. You can hear the difference. Like I think on YouTube you can find all the demos, and it's like so
Mm.
crazy to listen to what he did, and then you hear Travis, and it's like, oh wow,
That's
what a
some
different song.
that's some really good Blink trivia right there. Did you know
Yes.
in the movie they actually used the demo version of this? Like that's some
Sorry, I
good
nerd
stuff
out
right
hard on
there.
Blink.
No, I'm with it. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, or I don't know if it's a
you
secret
you can
or
say
when
whatever
this
you
is coming
want.
out. But I got the chance to write with Mark on this upcoming album, which was a very. Did you already know that? I don't know if you knew
I
that or
did.
not.
I did know
Okay,
that.
that was
Don't worry, this will
we.
come out after the song drops. I was already
Okay.
told like you will not release.
No, no worries. No, I appreciate it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that was one of the I mean, most unbelievable like full circle life moments. And you obviously, I mean, he's a wonderful guy, but you just you I don't think there's been many moments where I've wanted to like fan out in meeting a musician. I think even musicians or like athletes will talk about this. It's like, oh, musicians never like freak out in front of other musicians, but like you can meet like your favorite like quarterback or something, and it's like, oh,
Right.
cool, because you like do something different. But
Right, right.
I definitely like felt like I was working in his studio, being like, how like how is this like a real
Like
thing?
pinch me. Like, am
Yeah, like how
I?
like how how could you explain this to like the kid who spent so much time with those albums for so long and reading the liner notes, and like just I remember like just like I just have those vivid memories like laying on my bed and like reading every lyric, and I don't know, it's cool, and it's just wild to think about sometimes.
That's so rad. Yeah, I definitely want to talk about the new record for
Yeah.
sure. I just wanted to real quick, just kind of recap how you kind of got to where you are now with
Yeah.
you got a job at Google, right? Like out of college, and would you move Silicon Valley or something or San Francisco?
Yeah, I did. I moved right to their main headquarters, which is based in Mountain View, like right outside
Yeah.
of San Francisco. Yeah, it was pretty wild because I did plan to move my entire life there, and like before I even had a bed in like my apartment situated in San Francisco, I'd already gotten these like two calls from record label. It was a record label and a publishing company being like, "We want to fly you back out and like have a meeting." And
Really?
obviously, as my story goes, like I ended up doing everything independently, but it
Mm-hmm.
just kind of speaks to like how divided like just you think you're starting this new life and like, okay, this is what it's going to be, and I'm so excited to move out here and do a job, and then like, nope, music kept being like dividing the attention and pulling me back
Wow.
in. So I kind of knew even from the moment I started there that there was going to be some like big decisions that had to be
Mhm.
made in terms of like what my path was going to be.
So you already kind of obviously had the attention of people at this point. So
I,
when did
yeah, I had
that?
one song. I had one song that like, well, I didn't have one song, but I had one song that was like doing something on the internet, which was called "You're Not a Robot," and it was like
Mhm.
a song that sampled a Marina and the Diamonds song called "I Am Not a Robot." Very creative
Okay.
of me, and yeah, it kind of, I don't even trying to remember like where there was like I guess it was SoundCloud or YouTube. It was like the first song I ever had that had a million plays. So
That's
they weren't called
crazy.
streams then because there were no
Right.
streams. So it was like a million plays, and that was enough at the time to definitely get people's sort of like ears peaked and like, okay, what's going
Was
on
that
here?
like was that when you had was that the Hype Machine one, or is that the one that went number one on Hype Machine?
Yeah. I
Okay.
didn't bring up Hype Machine because I didn't know if that was too niche of a thing
Or
to.
yeah, no, dude, that was like the pinnacle at the time. If you got number one on Hype Machine, it was like everyone had their attention, right?
You definitely know what's yeah, it was Hype Machine fueled for sure. Like blogs were the music discovery
Mhm.
source. Like if you got posted on the certain coolest blogs or just enough blogs, you could get attention on Hype Machine, which was like the billboard for the
Mhm.
internet essentially. And You Are Not a Robot did go to number one on Hype Machine. I remember even I like the first time I ever like spent like serious money on, or at least I felt like it on music was like I did like an ad buy on Hype Machine. Like they skinned the website to be my free download like mixtape for that
That's
project.
huge.
And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna buy this and I'll figure this out. And then like all the people who have found me on Hype Machine will download the album because it's gonna be free. And I think
Hmm.
it actually worked. It actually worked pretty well. But yeah, the Hype Machine was just such a good discovery source at the time. You know, even
Hmm.
though I don't know why. I guess it was just a time like you had like Shitty Bang and myself and like a lot of these artists that were mixing the like indie sensibilities, like the indie rock and indie pop stuff with kind of poppy hip hop. So yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's crazy. That I mean, you came from marketing, so it makes sense that you'd have this brilliant idea of like, okay, I'm going to do a free download, and it's going to be on Hype Machine, which is like the spot everyone's going to discover whatever new artist they are, and
Yeah.
then you get a bunch of downloads, and to have a song at number one, like I just know talking to other artists that have done that, like that's just life changing.
It was very it's very weird because like once it happens once, you start to think you like your goalposts move, right? And then the next time you put out a song and it doesn't hit number one on Hype Machine, you're like, ah,
Oh,
damn
okay.
it, I flopped. I've my time has passed. But no, it was like it was very much a slow burn. Probably like with a lot of people that you talk to, you know, once the moment happens, whatever that moment is, it all feels like where did this person come from out of nowhere? But like they all have these like, oh no, I've been like doing this for 10 years and no one's cared sort of
Hmm.
stories. So it you know like it's almost I don't know what that phrase is where like opportunity is where like luck and preparation meet, but like
Yeah, meat or whatever.
there's like a lot of truth to it. It's like yeah, you like maybe you don't realize it, but like you've been preparing for what it would be if it all happens, and then like you stuck around long enough for all the dots to connect, and then if you make the most of that opportunity, like you can turn into a
Yeah.
career, you know.
So had that song do that, and then you moved to San Francisco. Like you got the job around the same time.
Yeah,
Oh
I think
wow.
well actually I think the way like you know they come and recruit you on campus at your school. So
Hmm.
I had the job. I had the job at Google lined up somewhere in my senior year of college, which was really freeing because once you know you have a job,
Yeah.
your GPA doesn't matter as
Right.
much.
You're like, I'll
I,
just pass.
I was like, I know I need to hit a certain minimum, but I don't need to be like that stressed anymore.
Uh-huh.
That's kind of when all this like that's when I made You're Not a Robot with my buddy RJ. Like it was during that semester when everything felt like okay, my future or like my safety net
Hmm.
job is in place, and we started making this music that became that first mixtape. So that mixtape drops, I'm like 1 month into working at Google, and I'm balancing these like very I don't know, weekend warrior life where I'm at the job and I'm like tweeting back to like the first fans I have, but
Hmm.
also like I've gotten booked to play a University of Georgia frat basement show for like $1,000, and I'm
Wow.
flying in to do it, and then I got to be back at work by Monday, and eventually, you know, like that was like this is not tenable. Like I can't continue doing this forever. But
Right.
yeah, it was like I look back at those moments kind of like, oh, you really were had one foot in both
Hmm.
worlds, you
At
know.
what point do you then go, I'm just gonna do music? And like, how long had you been working at Google at that time? And, or was there like a record or a song that did well enough to where you're like, okay, I'm just going to go full into this?
I put out that mixtape. Managers would hit me up, and I had meetings at like Jive, or it was like
Oh
RCA and
yeah. Like
somewhere
majors.
else. Yeah, and I did awful at all those meetings. I left with no label offers, and in my head, I was like, "Well, the one thing I need to justify leaving Google and leaving this like corporate job that everyone talks about as the best place in the world to work," and it was really nice.
Hmm.
Um, is I just need the record label. Like I need the deal, right? If I get the deal, I can justify it to my parents. Everyone won't worry about me. And then that didn't happen. But I ended up scheduling, like, it was like a winter break, and I played my first like 3 or 4 headline shows, like New York, Boston, Philly,
Wow.
maybe one other one, I can't remember. But those were like my East Coast, where I'm from, shows.
Hmm.
And every show sold out. And I just said to myself, like, I I I think we do this, and I had like my first like booking agent at the time, and we had a bunch of those like little college shows, and you know, I am, as much as like creative, I'm definitely like pragmatic and analytical as well. So
Hmm.
I looked at it and I said, well, looks like we can make, I don't know, half of what I'm making at Google if I just do these shows, and then if I'm putting all my time into music, like I just think I can make it happen. Like give me a year and we'll see where I'm at, like full energy instead of this double dipping, like never sleeping
Hmm.
thing. And so I went back after that winter break to Google and said, like, hey, this is where my head's at. And they said, we support you. Like, take 6 months. If it doesn't work out, your job is still here. We wish you luck.
Wow. That's incredible that they were
Yeah.
willing to do that.
I guess they had already like trained me. So they're like, oh well, whatever.
Like,
We
we
like,
don't want to train somebody else.
yeah, we don't, I mean, they were training tons of people. Like, oh, we already put our money into him, so yeah, we'll just whatever it was. And 6 months after that, it just wasn't. There was no turning back. Like things had started to happen as I had hoped when putting all the energy in there, and
Hmm.
kind of like we're off to the races doing this all independently. So it was very, yeah, it was
I mean, that's
very
insane
crazy
to
how it
to
works.
be independent and self-release something like All American talking. If we talk about that record, like
Yeah.
it comes out in what, it's top 10 on the Billboard 200, and like it does all these crazy things, like the #1 record on iTunes, like all as an independent artist. That's
Yeah,
something that's like
that
unheard of at the time.
it was. I, it's hard. I mean, like things were happening around that time where I feel like, like maybe even less than a year later, like Macklemore put out like the Macklemore and Ryan
Oh,
Lewis put out the
yeah.
Heist independently, and like
Won a
that
Grammy for like album of the
that
year and
one,
stuff.
yeah, and
Yeah.
Chance the Rapper with Acid Rap. I mean, there were like other people doing probably even bigger things, and
But
someone
I mean, not a whole lot though. I
that
mean,
I mean,
the
All
odds were
American.
definitely against you.
Yeah, All American kind of came. I don't want to say came first, but it did happen. Sequentially a little bit earlier, and it
Mhm.
was the first time that I had ever put anything up for sale, because everything before that was like free mixtapes and man of the people. Not that selling something makes you not a man of the people, but
Right.
it was like a moment, because I was like, hey, it would be amazing if you guys could support this. It's 8 songs. It's gonna be $5. Like I wanted to price it at the time everything was like $1.29, or maybe it is still that way. But like people didn't. There was some strategy to being like, it's gonna be $5 if you want to support, if you've enjoyed, and it sold 30,000 copies first week, which like doesn't really make, like I can't remember what the like social, like how many people did you have on Facebook follow or whatever it
Right,
was.
right.
I'll say it felt like it was a large majority, like percentage wise, of people that said, you know what, like I'm gonna back this, I'm gonna support this.
Mhm.
And luckily those songs have continued to like hold up over time. And it's wild how sometimes I see this happen for a lot of bands too. It's like your first thing that blows up like just holds a special place
Sure.
in those people's hearts forever. And like I feel fortunate that the thing that did for me is something that I still really enjoy, that I enjoy performing, and I don't look back at it in cringe, maybe like just a little bit on like one or two songs. But like for the most part, like I look back at it fondly and go like, yeah, I'm really glad that this was the thing that resonated with people and
Hmm.
got to like kind of start the snowball effect.
Hmm. And from there, I mean, that what opened up doors, I would imagine, right? With working with a bunch of artists and just kind of elevating your career at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it was it's it's weird. Sometimes like as time goes on, it becomes harder and harder to remember like how you feel in those very moments. Like I wish I could capture like all those feelings because when I think back, I just think, oh wow, things must have been moving so fast. I started like doing two US tours every year. I was like, oh, I'll go do a tour in the spring, I'll go do a tour in the fall. So easy.
Hmm.
Everything's easy. And then like the song is just like, oh, yeah, it was an internet thing. And then before you know it, like the crowd shifts from being like the hype machine crowd where it's like, yeah, we don't really like hip hop, but like if we like anyone, we'll come and see you. It shifts from that to being like everyone here is like in college and now there's more girls coming. Like it was like
Hmm.
all guys and now it's girls and like that's kind of in a weird way like once girls start liking you, like girls are the real tastemakers, I feel like in the music
Sure.
industry.
No, for
People
sure.
I don't feel like people give enough credit like because when a girl likes something like everyone should really like it because I don't know. I don't know the best way to explain it. It just
No,
it
it
was
makes
like
sense though. It
yeah,
does. Look at the biggest artists on the planet, right? I mean, look at like Justin Bieber when he came out. Like girls flocked to him, and then obviously they saw something, and so did everyone else at some point.
they
We're like,
they
whoa, like this guy
they
can
just know
really
what's up.
write. Yeah, they do.
They know what's up, and it was just like, oh, okay. You just see, a more diverse group of people coming to the shows, and you're like, oh, just keep the cycle going. You're like, oh, time for another mixtape. Like I tried not to abandon the strategy. Like the thing that came out right after All American was then like a free project.
Hmm.
Um, it just felt like okay, the relationship here with the fans is like always be transparent and like let them know how much you appreciate the support. So you're not going to just turn into like a now everything you just but like it was very like okay, got to give back. Here's a free one.
Hmm.
Maybe support the next one. Here's a freebie. Like kind of balancing that out back and forth. And for the most part, yeah, those a lot of cool music came from that.
Yeah, I mean, what a brilliant I mean, like I said, you have this market, you have a degree or background in marketing, and just like the things you came up with to kind of, you know, balance your career is so creative. Like, okay, I'm gonna give away a record, then I'm gonna charge just like $5. Like, you know, people that's like a coffee, right? And it's like, okay, sure. And then I'll give you a free one, and then like, you know, help support me on this one. Like it's just brilliant.
I it felt right. I don't know. It
Mhm.
was like I don't know. At the end of the day, like you can look back and make these decisions, saying like, oh well, what if I had signed with a label like right after that record came out? Would some of these songs that are still like some of the bigger things in like my discography would they have been like 10 times as big if they ever were on the radio? Because a lot of these songs, I mean, they never got mainstream appeal. Like I'm still confused to this day how people know them or like where they were in their life when like that became something that they were aware of because it always still felt very underground to me. So when I see like a TikTok like 8 years later, someone's like, "This song was my childhood," I'm like, "How?" Like where? But yeah, it's like those decisions. I think ultimately like no regrets because I think maybe it's more like the songs wouldn't they would have been played out if they had gotten that like
Mhm.
wide, like there's something
Sure.
about a song still being like your little thing that you hold on to when it doesn't become everyone's thing.
Mhm.
So,
Right, I mean, it kinda goes back to even those emo bands at the time, like the Long Island emo bands, the
of
Taking Back
course,
Sundays that never got radio play until they signed to a major label, but they had, like, this knit core fan base that always held on to them, and it was like, "That's my childhood, the Tell All Your Friends record," like, and then they can come back 25 years later or whatever it was and play the album, and people flock to them. But, I mean, it's cool that you get to be that for people, I'm sure.
I don't know if it's like imposter syndrome or what you would call it, but like to me, it still doesn't always make sense sometimes. Like I think it's incredible, but I model so much of like um, when I've thought about like touring and just longevity in general in the music industry, I look to a lot of those bands very favorably. I mean, they get like I never really thought, "Oh, I gotta be an arena act and I gotta be on the cover of Rolling Stone." Like those sort of like, I don't know, accolades or moments were never the things that really um, was what I was striving for. I always had this like idea in my head that like I want to do this for as long as I want to do it. Like I'd love for it to always be on my terms and to just have like this thing where music can like as long as it's bringing me like that joy, I want to be able to like enjoy that and share it with other people. And I look at so many of those bands that just like you said, like they can come back to this day regardless and just continue to tour and make people happy and like share this thing that they made, and people care about their new stuff and people care about their old stuff, and
Mhm.
it's just like oh, what an incredible life. I think that's like something to absolutely strive for.
Well, okay, so you this record you're putting out is the first thing you've released what in a few years, right?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever, since starting, I don't think I've ever went this long without putting out a body of work. I know like everyone's like we kind of get a pass for these past 2 years with the world in some sense. Maybe it's not like a normal timeline, and I really do love matching the release of new music with touring. And for so much of the pandemic, that obviously wasn't a thing.
Mhm.
I definitely looked at things and said, if you put out a new record and then like you don't get to go tour the world on it, you know, where does that record end up like living for people? Does it get forgotten? There's definitely like a bit of trepidation with that.
Mhm.
but but yeah, this is the first time I've put something out since my 2019 album. So it's like I'm getting all the feelings again, like those exciting butterfly feelings where you've like held on to this baby and you're like, okay, baby, time for other people to have
Sure.
you also. So it's yeah, it's all coming back.
Well, and you took a different approach. I mean, the song I've heard is awesome. I love the like this kind of resurgence, I guess would be of like pop punk and all in that genre, like really making a huge comeback. And this song or this song in this record is a totally different sound for you, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's definitely I mean, like the biggest difference is like I mean, it's not a hip hop record.
Right.
There's one rap verse on the entire thing. It's very much it's I think it's similar in the ways that like my voice is my voice, and like this perspective is like it's gonna feel like a Hoodie Allen record to the people who know me,
Hmm.
even despite like because they've seen me do like collaborate with state champs
Right.
and
Right.
and like you know I've worked like Nick Anderson who you know made the whole record with me from the Rex. Like we worked together on a song on the last project, so like the
Hmm.
foundations have been sort of set in this place. But the differences are like, yeah, I've made a story album about a breakup, the real, very real, like honest thing that I went through. So instead of the songs being, you know, hip hop fun stuff, we've got sad bops this time, is what I like to call it. Like, the songs are mostly still high energy, but the lyrics are sad, and and like you know, it's just kind of a much more honest approach. And uh, it's been interesting to see, like you said, like there's been a bit of a resurgence in this place. We started like Nick and myself started working on this record a little bit before the changing of all those things happening. So like we're kind of sitting around being like, ah, shoot, it's gonna everyone else is already doing this. But uh, I think maybe the one differentiator is for the majority of the record, it all the you know music is very like organic. Like we're not trying to match pop, rock, emo with like trap. Like
Hmm.
that's like not the goal here. Like the record isn't like drowned in like auto tune and stuff like that. Like
No, not at
it
least the song I heard did
yeah,
not at all.
it's you know like it's much more born off of a mixture of like, okay, well, this is just what I felt like. These are the songs that like that came from like this like therapy session basically, and then
Hmm.
also like the influences of what we grew up on, like you know, getting to work with like a guy like Mark Hoppus on this, like it brings out certain aspects of the record where it just feels like very organic and real, at least for me.
Hmm. When did you start writing the record? Was it during COVID or when the pandemic happened?
I got stuck at Nick's house during COVID. I was there to write. Like it was this like March of 2020, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And I was like staying at a hotel, and then they were like, Ubers and hotels are shutting down. And he lives in Los Angeles. I live in New York.
Yeah.
So I was like, what do I do now? And he was like, hey man, just like come stay with me, and we'll work and we'll hang out. And like that process ended up becoming like a 4-month stay at his house. Not something I ever anticipated, but like the world completely shut down, and the idea of going on a plane was uh, not a thing that anyone did,
Right.
I guess.
And going to
So,
New York where it was like the worst of
and
all.
yeah, and then I live in New York where it's like, well, I can be in my 1-bedroom apartment, not able to leave, or I could be outside in California. I'm
Gonna
gonna stay
say.
here and see what happens. And yeah, so we made a lot of the record during those times before he got tired of having me around, and then we just hung out and didn't make music. But yeah, and then it's just been a process as the world's open, like of just coming back to songs and tweaking and finishing, and till we now finally have like a full record. So it's yeah, it's definitely gonna be always gonna be like the most unique story of a way an album got made. It's like, oh, I got stuck on my friend's couch during the pandemic,
Uh-huh.
essentially.
That's cool though. He's a great guy. I interviewed the Rex before
Oh,
during
amazing.
COVID, and his room had like these crazy like purple lighting in his studio. I don't know if he
Oh, I've
yeah,
seen
I'm sure you
I've
knew.
seen the LED lights. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
spent many hours in that room. And
Yeah.
Nick's one of like the most hardworking. It's like it was so interesting living with him because we'd have days where he'd just be like, "Yeah, he's gonna stay up 3 days straight making this music, and like
Hmm.
he just doesn't go to sleep." And then he'll be asleep for 2 days, and I'll just see him pop up out of his room, like cook a pizza, and then go back to sleep. I was like, all right, see you, Nick." And he's just
You're
is
alive. Okay, that's good.
I think he has a much healthier work life balance now, but at the time when the world sort of turned off, I mean, we just behaved in like such a odd way of like making music and living. It was very weird.
That's awesome though. And then you obviously had a chance to work with Mark Hoppus on the record. Did you work with State Champs again on this record? Or no?
No, but I
Just Mark
didn't. Yeah,
Hoppus?
just Mark. But I mean, I love those state champs guys. Like they're. I mean, like besides them all have like Ryan from state champs has
Mhm.
like multiple other projects that are great as
Right.
well. Like they are. I'm excited for them because their album I think is coming out the same day as my first single. So
Yeah, they have a new record on the way, and
yeah,
they've been doing some cool stuff too over COVID. That song was Simple Plan, and I think We Are Romans. I think were on it as well. I don't know,
yeah. I mean,
but
they're
yeah.
just great dudes, and I admire so much of what they do as well because like again, you just see like an amazing like touring fan base and people who just it's like the people who you have. It doesn't matter if it's like, oh, you 20 million monthly listeners, or just
Yeah,
like doesn't matter because like the people who like listen like really care, and that's at the end of the day all you can ask for. Like I'd much rather have like a passionate sort of group of people than just so many
a
casual
number,
people. Yeah,
a number
yeah.
on your
The number is overrated sometimes when
yeah.
you break it down.
Not always does it translate right to hard ticket sales into people that actually care. They might know, oh, you have that one song that I have on my playlist, but yeah, to have a whole
It
fan base is totally different.
the music industry is weird like that because it's always like a grass is greener. Like I remember, I wouldn't say jealous, but like there was a like I would see someone get an opportunity like the XXL freshman cover. I'd be like, why can't XXL like ever cover me? Or like I never, the cool nylon magazine, I never get a write up in that. And then the same person who was getting that stuff is like, dude, I just want to tour and do what you're doing. Like, what do you? So you're like, oh, gotcha. We all feel this way in
Hmm.
different ways about like, comparative analysis to self.
Sure, sure. So when you with this record, was there did it just kind of happen that it wasn't hip hop? I
Yeah.
mean, that just kind of came out when you were doing the record. You're like, oh, well, actually, none of these songs really have full on rap verses on them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's partially a symptom of working with Nick and
Hmm.
obviously wanting to live in like the production wheelhouse that is his world. And,
Hmm.
he can do anything, but like he is, a rock guy, and that's like where his sensibilities are. And like he has so many good, strong melodies. and ideas, but like it, we're living in like an alternative space, and it also felt like that was what was right for the things that I wanted to like say and share and like be vulnerable and open about, what was going on in my life. Like it kind of just naturally went there, and that's like one of my favorite things about it, that I'll always know that for myself. I don't know what like the public will think when they hear it all, because like you said, there's been such a resurgence that it could just easily have been like, oh yeah, you're gonna ride this wave now too. It's like, I don't know, man. Like I wasn't thinking about a wave at all. Like, we were doing this just to like, to feel better. Like I felt
Yeah.
I was so sad. I just made these songs to feel better. Like that's all it was.
But it
Um,
wasn't, it's not even like your sound sounds like what they're doing, because there's like a really distinct, like Machine Gun Kelly, like sound, right? Like a
yeah.
Mod Sun type sound that's happening. But this, what I've heard, doesn't sound, anything like that at all.
Yeah, I mean, all love to those guys. Like I've toured with Mod before. Like I think it's awesome. He's also like a great example of like persistence. Like if you know how
Sure.
long he's been doing
Oh,
it,
yeah. He's
like
been grinding forever.
like like I'm glad you had like this breakout moment, because you have
Mhm.
been grinding forever. But yeah,
Yeah.
I do think that um because we did make something like completely uninspired by like what was going around us, that hopefully it will kind of sound like its own thing.
It definitely does. And it's still even the song I heard with Wouldn't That Be Nice has like a hip hop, like
That's
when
the
it
most
changes
hot
up in
one.
the middle of
Yeah,
this. Oh, yeah. Okay.
yeah, I know. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I
No,
would say
no.
that that's the one that has the most hip hop drum elements of everything, which
Hmm.
maybe it's a good reason to give it first to people for the sort of transitional, like get them accustomed to things.
Yeah. Subtle
And
transition.
yeah, and like his former bandmate Weston Weiss, who like has gone on to do so many productions for Post Malone and
Hmm.
Drake and stuff like that. Like he was a part of that record as well.
Oh, cool.
But besides that, I mean, we're really going with like the organic sounding drum kits and just like everything feeling very band. Meant for
Cool.
a live performance for sure.
I love that. And is the video for, I haven't had a chance to see a video for Wouldn't That Be Nice, but is that's kind of a telling the story of the record too? Is that what I read?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. That we're in the visual effects editing stage at the time of us talking right now. But yeah,
Okay.
gotta cut it close. You know what I mean? Gotta make it impossible. Um,
Sure.
that's the music business. But yeah, no, I mean it definitely tells the story of where the story starts, and so much of this record is kind of like, it feels like the returning to an apartment that you used to share with somebody and now no longer do.
Hmm.
And I don't know, just kind of like the for me, most of the, I mean, the album kind of starts at the end of this relationship, and where it ends is, it's not like we put a nice bow on it and everything is like happy ever after. It kind of ends still in a bit of like that insecurity spot where you're like, I'm getting over you, but uh, are you getting over me too? Like
Hmm.
just like, it's still like weird. And most of the records kind of touch on this like in between stage where I'm sure maybe not everyone has had this part of their relationship, but like you've broken up with somebody, but you're still talking, and
Right. No, so
and
many
you're
people have had
and you're
that.
still making it weird for yourself, and you're still putting yourself in like a harmful.
Position to get hurt. Right.
Yeah, you're like it was like, I know that I did something to hurt myself, but I couldn't help it because I was still chasing like the moments that felt the best
Mhm.
when you're with that person, even though you know that you're like setting up for yourself to get crushed. Like you're crushing yourself while doing this, and like that kind of spans the kind of the length of this record. And visually, I think the music video brings a lot of those elements to life also.
I love it. I've never heard I can't think of anyone that's written a song or a record like that. And it's such a like relatable thing. You know what I mean? Like kind of being in that space of, I
Yeah,
want to
just
be
put your
around this person, but I shouldn't because they could just be with someone else and, crush me. And yeah, like just the uncertainty there. I love that.
and they were, which is why the songs become so interesting, because it was messy and complicated and
Hmm.
multiple people involved. And but we'll save that for the music, I guess.
Okay.
I'm but I'm good now. these were things that I felt before, but I feel better now.
I'm glad you feel better now. And dude,
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing this interview, man. You
Oh
are
yeah,
so
dude.
cool. Like I really, really appreciate it.
No, but like I said, you're my first interview, so I will not forget this. I'm really appreciative of it, and I appreciate you checking out the record as well. Like that is, we got to make sure you hear the whole thing
Yeah,
if you
I
haven't
can't
heard.
wait to. Like I said, I heard the one song and I'm like, oh, this is so good. I love it.
But yeah, I mean, thank you again for having me on. Love
Mhm.
what you're doing, and so excited to see what how big the channel is gonna get.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I have one more quick question for you
Yeah.
before I let you go. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yeah, I mean, I think my advice is to uh, hmm. I feel like I have like old advice. So I'm trying to think of what feels really current now. I would say be resilient and be persistent, but always do things for yourself. And I'll break down what that means. I always tell artists like you gotta like you have your one career and it's you. Like you have to be the person who relies on yourself the most, and you should do this regardless of if it's a career or not. If this is the thing that you like love doing, and you'd love to get to the point where you can make it a career. Okay, just like keep doing it for you, and don't do it to chase a hit song or be frustrated if like TikTok's not blowing up yet. Like it's not supposed to be easy. Like our barriers to entry are so low now. Anybody can put out a song. It can go on Spotify. Anyone can have a song go viral on TikTok. And because it's so achievable for so many people, a lot of people are trying. So just keep at it. That's where the I think be persistent part is, and keep you know just being positive because the I do believe that things that are special, even if you have no following, they somehow find a way to break out eventually. Like it's hard to keep a really, really good song hidden for too long. So keep making those songs and yeah, be okay with the process taking a while because it could take a while.